What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the E-commerce Unlocked podcast, where, as you know, we cut the fluff and we discuss all the good stuff about e-commerce. Those tactics, those details that you can implement in your business today to take your e-com business to the next level. Today, we are interviewing and talking with Will Hare. This guy, he's got a ton of experience when it comes to marketplaces, and to use his words, Amazon is the end-all be-all of marketplaces. So we're going to talk specifically about how to become profitable on Amazon using your PPC and DSP advertising strategy. So, Will, give us a quick intro to yourself, like the 30-second who is Will, and then let's go from there.
Heck yeah, man. Hell of an intro. Thanks so much for having me. I'm Will Hare. I'm the co-founder of Bellavix. I have 10 plus years experience in advertising, working at agencies. I've been hyper-focused on Amazon since 2013, give or take. So seen tremendous changes on the platform. I've worked with small businesses to enterprise level brands, and I definitely understand some of the challenges of being a seller on these platforms. And I'm excited to be here to talk about advertising, which is my favorite topic to talk about.
The world needs people like you who get and love advertising.
Yeah. So again, question, as we're starting off, Will, you talked about doing PPC and DSP. I am on the supply chain side of stuff. I don't understand anything marketing, advertising. What do those acronyms mean in general? Like what are we talking about, I guess, on that side of stuff?
Yeah, great question. So super simple, PPC, pay-per-click. And the best way I think of this is your bottom of the funnel traffic. These are people who are searching your brand, they're in category, and they're looking to buy products in aisle or your product directly. DSP, demand side platform, that's programmatic advertising, and that's a CPM model. So it's an impression-based system, and it gives me the ability to build audiences and serve those audiences ads on and off of Amazon using Amazon's data. So I like to do these examples. A perfect opportunity when it comes to DSP is like anybody who added your product to cart but didn't make a purchase, or anybody who's in aisle or looking at competitors' products but didn't make that purchase. I can chase them around the internet whenever they're checking their phones or they think they're safe and they're in their bed, and I'm going to show them those ads and try to get them to make a purchase, because that's what we do.
My wife last night just bought, I don't know, a couple $100 worth of stuff on Amazon. I woke up this morning, I was like, oh, you weren't going to sleep when you said you were asleep, huh? That was a late night purchase you got there. So, Will, I guess thanks for that. I guess probably it was you.
Yeah,
Will was over there just blasting ads.
Yeah, and thank your wife too. Support my people. More consumers on Amazon.
Oh, that's awesome. So a lot of our brands that listen, our listeners, I'll say some are, just getting started out. They haven't jumped onto Amazon. And my personal brand, I want to get on Amazon. I haven't actually gotten on Amazon yet. So that's kind of one group. The other group is they're on Amazon and they're wanting to scale. So let's take that first group really quick. And I'd love to kind of highlight, there was one specific brand I was talking to that they just barely got on Amazon. They're doing, I think they're about $15 million in annual revenue on their Shopify. And they really waited the first 3 or 4 years before they put anything on Amazon, worried that it was going to cannibalize their sales over on Shopify. And I guess for you, is there anything on the advertising side that we can do to kind of mitigate that cannibalization so that brands who are contemplating the jump can feel more confident about the switch?
Oh yeah, that's a really great question. And honestly, it's not unusual for a brand to launch their D2C on Shopify, wait a year or two and roll it out to Amazon. I feel like that's pretty common. Mm-hmm. You own your customer data, the cost per acquisition and the lifetime's easier to measure. But if you were worried about cannibalization, and I like to think that it all works together. At the end of the day, the shopper shops where they're gonna shop. So the brand experience and that quality product plays a lot into it. But we have the ability to pixel your website and then negate those audiences. So we can completely set up your advertising campaigns to be new to brand, and we can kind of build audiences around that. So that would be probably the number one way I would exclude existing customers if I was working with your brand.
Oh, interesting. Something I would say about marketers and advertisers and stuff in general is, again, I'm on the ops side. I'm on shipping logistics is what I focus on. When I kind of got more involved with some marketing aspects, I'm like, dude, marketers, you guys are stalkers. Like, you take stalking to a whole new level. Like, if I ever need to find someone, like, I'm not going to call like the FBI or PI. I'm calling a marketing agency. I'm like, hey, where's this guy? What is he looking at? Like, what's he browsing on? Like, you guys have everyone's data. on everything. So it is insane how much you can do with that. And that's amazing. You can be like, hey, this person's visited your site. Let's tailor that differently than like an Amazon customer. So that's amazing that you're able to gather that data and utilize it, because there's so much data at your fingertips. So that's congrats on the stalkerness levels. That's awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'll take the creeper points. And what I will say too is come to the dark side, Emerson. This is just the beginning. We're looking for motivated people.
That's an employment pitch right there.
Honestly, it does get a little creepy. I mean, I've been doing marketing for quite a while, and I've been pitched by some I think they were DSP vendors, but they're like, yeah, and if you want listening data, just let us know. And we're like, wait, like Amazon Alexa is recording me right now? It's weird.
It is weird. There's actually some litigation going on that some universities did, and Google and Amazon got in a lot of trouble for essentially recording data that they shouldn't have been. So we have the ability to advertise via audio, but I don't have access to listening. And the other thing too, so for you to be aware of, like, I'm joking around, we stalk you, but like as an advertiser, like we really don't know who you are. We know like the gist based on your demographic information and your profile. So a lot of times you just get put in buckets. We're joking around on this show, but in all seriousness, that's kind of how it works. And there are safeguards in place that the government put in to protect your personal information, of course. So I just want to get that out.
That's a good qualifier there. Good clarification, Will. I mean, yes, there are jokes, but in the end, like it's not as creepy as it might sound.
Yeah.
I kind of want to dive into, for those brands who are on Amazon, right? They're wanting to scale but not cannibalize anything on their D2C site. We kind of already talked a little bit about that, but what are kind of your top 3 tips for brands who are either getting started or just, doing some advertising on Amazon?
Beautiful. Yeah. So I'll start with if you're already advertising on Amazon. So you're on the platform, at the minimum, you should be doing pay-per-click. And what I find, so we believe in bidding on brand terms. So you want to make sure you're protecting your brand in a defensive strategy, and you're in categories. You're making sure you have a presence in aisle, and you're conquesting. Love going after competitors, and our brands love it when they see we stole sales from some top competitors. So when you're on the platform, a lot of it comes down to is like, what's your efficiency standard? And you want to make sure that whatever that KPI is. So like we use Tacos, total advertising cost of sale, and that's your total ad spend by your total sales. And Amazon, unlike Shopify and some other websites, like the advertising sales influences organic ranking, which is why we kind of group them together. So a lot of times when we work with brands, and like this is such a typical story where it's like they're doing good, maybe they're $500,000 to $1 million a year on Amazon, but they're losing market share, and they're like, we're doing everything we've been doing, we don't understand. And then a lot of times when we connect with those brands, what we find out is like they've just been solely relying on pay-per-click and outside advertising efforts to grow the brand. And what we find is that Amazon is a major player. It's a very competitive marketplace. So if you're not doing anything outside of the bottom of the funnel to grow your brand, you're going to get caught in sales stagnation. And then worst of all, you're going to start losing market share. And this is where like the introduction to DSP makes a lot of sense, because it gives us the ability to build audiences for you using Amazon's data. So like actual shopping behavior and customer data. So we generally know like contextually intent, like we have all these indicators to say this is a good customer and we should pepper them with ads to try to get them to make a purchase and try our solution. So that would be for just a brand that's actually firing on all cylinders. And before I jump into the startup brand, I don't want to talk too much. I love to just pitch it back to you guys. Any questions or anything that you might want to add?
Yeah. I just want to double click a little bit on what you said. I was having a conversation with a marketing agency yesterday, and they don't do Amazon. They're more, full service marketing agency, but we kind of had a full on discussion about how a lot of agencies will kind of just dive in and say, to get like quick wins, they're just flushing the bottom of the funnel. And
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, look at what we can do. But then, 1, 2 months go by and then it's like empty. The funnel's gone because
Yep.
you flushed the whole thing and you're not refilling it. So
Ex-
double clicking on that idea of the DSP being your top of funnel, getting people brand awareness. I know it's one of those like almost taboo, not taboo terms, but just like a kind of a cliche term of like, yeah, you're doing top of funnel, you're doing brand awareness. It's really hard to kind of to quantify exactly the ROI
Mhm.
on that. But when you have a full funnel strategy, you got your top of funnel, you're pushing down into your more PPC bottom funnel, and then you're getting conversions through, and you're looking at your tacos. Love that term. But looking at your tacos, you get a full funnel there, and it really that's the strategy that wins, not just the
Yeah.
quick wins of some marketing agencies.
Well,
Yeah.
here's a question
Now
on
I
that. When
love
you're running
that.
like PPC and stuff like that, how do you determine those keywords? Like for me, I ran, this was like way a while ago on that. Like, I don't know, this was 8, 10 years ago on Amazon. And again, I'm the ops guy. Like, Emerson, can you run our Amazon for this small startup? And I was like, of course, it can't be that hard. And we sold like wallets. And I'm like, the keyword would be wallet. Like, I'm not sure what other like term I could use. I'm like, we are only putting on wallet and like red wallet, small wallet. Like, I don't know, there's like 10 words that came to mind in general. So I'm like, are you chat GPT in this thing? And you're like, all right, what should I use my keyword for? Or how do you know like this is the keyword I should be using and identifying those buyers or using those keywords and whatnot?
Yeah, great question. And what I'm taking from this is like, Emerson, got to come in. I know you want to learn this. Totally kidding. But when it comes to pay per click, yeah, I mean, I'll share exactly what we do, and hopefully your audience gets some value out of it. So we do like a combination. So we do use Google Keyword Planner to get intent of like how people generally search for products. We get an idea of like, is it a transactional? Is it educational? And I forgot the third category for the types of searches. We use Helium 10 reverse ASIN lookup. We use brand analytics, which is Amazon's backend. And then if we're advertising the product, we're going to use the search term report. And between those tools, we come up with like a pretty loaded keyword uh, list essentially. And then our job is to segment those based on where we think they fall in the funnel. And then that's kind of how we go about it. And pretty typically what you would see, especially if you're a launch brand like a wallet, it'd be like, what's the long tailed or like the unique proposition? So is it an RFID wallet, or is it a brown leather wallet with a chain, et cetera, et cetera? Like those are kind of how you'd piece it together. And when we like, if you're advertising now and you're trying to figure it out and you want to grow, like there's like the pyramid effect, I like to call it. And it's like you go after a long keyword, but at the end of the day, at the top of that pyramid, there's like a root keyword that you really want. So maybe it's like brown leather wallet has millions of views a month, and you're like, I want to rank on the first page for that. But the competition is just stacked. So that's where you kind of go with like a long trail philosophy, build ranking, get authority, and then work your way up. And then as you get more ranking, more reviews, more sales velocity, you'll start indexing for that root keyword. And then we have SEO and advertising working together. And then couple that with a DSP strategy, and you're really firing on all cylinders.
Is that why I think you kind of mentioned the tacos, your total advertising with revenue? I kind of go by on my Shopify store, I go by blended ROAS, which is a similar idea, but is it basically because almost like a rising tide raises all ships? Is that the term that like
Yeah.
advertising helps you rank and your rank is higher, so you get more organic sales, and then all of a sudden your ads are performing better, and then you get more reviews, and then all of a sudden your ad goes up, or everything's working a little bit
Yeah.
more. So is that why you go for that tacos number?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And it gives me the ability to be flexible. If we're always stuck in like a tight band, then you're gonna get stuck on the bottom. And like I said, then we're only going after branded and maybe a couple competitors, but then you're gonna lose out to market saturation, and then you'll be the victim of the market that moves on. So it's just a way to stay ahead. And this is how you stay ahead now in the game. I mean, geez, with Chat GPT and everything else, it's gonna be a lot different. That's just the nature of the beast.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So I see that you're working with some pretty big brands. You've worked with Instant Pot, you've worked with Pyrex, like some really household names. Um, d- I mean, maybe you can share, maybe you can't. But are there anything like interesting things, maybe out of the norm that they're doing, or is it just kind of run of the mill what everybody's working on? Like
Um,
any good insights from those brands?
yeah. So what I know about enterprise brands is that there's a lot more segmentation into the roles when it comes to like strategic execution. So like typically we work with like a lot of, I would say, mid-sized, like regular businesses where maybe I'm working with an e-commerce manager or even sometimes the owner. There's not as
Mhm.
many people involved, which is great. When you work with these enterprise brands, it's like PR, social media, ops, advertising, pay-per-click advertising, like it goes on, influencer, like it's crazy. And what you realize,
Mhm.
like especially with our experience with some of these larger brands, is like they just have a lot of money to put behind like millions. It's insane how
Mhm.
much money they have for like some of these tentpole events to push awareness, and you could really see how fast and the amplification of doing full funnel tactics, like what it means to have brand awareness on point. And you got to think about it too, like
Mhm.
brand awareness. Sure, I'm talking about ads, I'm talking about DSP, and I'm talking about this, but when you're in an aisle, you know what I mean? Like when you're at an end cap at Target, like right here in Raleigh, North Carolina, like my local Target is 3,000 eyeballs. Multiply that by every Target inside the United States, like that is insanely powerful. And like the amount of people, the
Mhm.
validation, then you layer in commercials, influencer marketing, be it on QVC, like all of these things, they spill over to Amazon, they spill over to the marketplaces. So that's why like some of the brands, like we had a
Mhm.
brand we took on that did journals and it was great, but it was like a 2 SKU catalog. And they did see some of our case studies and they were under the impression that like we could take this catalog and do what we did with some of these enterprise level brands. And unfortunately, without the finances, the know-how, and having all these people in all these places, it's a lot harder to do and it takes a lot longer. So that's why the
Mhm.
strategy and how we approach a small and mid-sized business is just way different than some of these enterprise level businesses. So when I do talk a lot on some
Yeah.
podcasts and do some of the influencer stuff, I usually talk more to small to mid because it's more real. And let's be real, like what 90% of
Yeah.
US businesses are small businesses, like they fall into that category. Plus smaller businesses are funner
Mhm.
to work with. It's great to get the feather in the cap. We work with Instapot, but like it's a lot of attention, it's a lot of hours, it's a lot of pressure.
Mhm.
I'll take brands you've never heard of all day over some of those enterprise level brands.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. What, as you were kind of talking about that, my question is like, maybe this is hard, but what's the difference, maybe the ad spend difference between PPC and DSP that you'd kind of recommend? I mean, enterprise, yeah, let's take that out of the hat because most of us are not at that level,
Yeah.
but small, mid-sized business on Amazon, 50-50, 40, 40-20. Just kidding, that's bad
Yep.
math, but 40-60, what does it look like?
Yeah, typically 80/20. 80% pay per click, bottom of the funnel. 20% is typical. Most brands will give us like 15 to 30% tacos to work with. So, like, that tends to be the ratio. Certain categories perform really
Mhm.
well. And if you're in a saturated category, we may go heavier on programmatic in order to like
Mhm.
build those audiences. And those will just be the nature of the beast. But typically, we try to work for like an 80/20 split.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And then just for my clarification, you recommend around 20 to 30% of your revenue in ad
Yeah.
spend?
Yeah, the tacos. So give or take if you could
Got it.
afford it, but it depends on the
Yeah.
category because some categories it's just different. It could be as low as 10%. Some
Mhm.
jewelry is like because it's subjective, like people window shop. So like you need a higher tacos to have an impression, whereas something that is less subjective, um, we could have a lower tacos because it takes less eyeballs to get the purchase, and that's so I talk in generalities. Like every
Mhm.
category is kind of different, um, so it's hard to say.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, historically, I try to keep my advertising around 20% of revenue. But granted, I'm operating Shopify stores. I personally have done a lot less on Amazon. So I'm just trying to get a bead for kind of how that compares, with the Amazon fees and that kind of thing. Like, profitability is a little bit tighter
Yeah.
over there. So I didn't know if that was kind of something that,
No,
that
that's a good
brands
point. About
change
35%.
strategies.
Yeah, 35% you're going to eat in fees, and then whatever you're paying on advertising.
Mhm.
So it all, it's a much more expensive platform. But Amazon has a lot of eyeballs. It's close to 50% of all e-commerce in the US. So it's no joke. So I like to tell brands too who
Yeah.
focus on Shopify, like, even if you aren't interested in Amazon, like, it doesn't hurt just to have a store. It doesn't mean you have to throw money at it. But
Mhm.
what is not unusual is a customer will see it on the website and be like, "Hey, can I get it from Amazon in 2 days? Is that available?" And
Mhm.
you don't necessarily have to send inventory into FBA. You can fulfill the orders from your third party and just have your listings up. There's great softwares. I mean, we're a professional agency, so we would recommend doing it differently. But Listing Mirror is an example, and there's a few others out there that'll just take your existing parameters in Shopify and just pull it right to Amazon. So there are
Hmm.
some streamlined options you can use to just test the marketplace, the validity of it before you jump in with 2 feet, and me and Emerson start doing advertising for you.
Yeah.
I like the side hustle. Let's do it, man. I'll ship it. You advertise it. How about that?
Let's do that.
So you mentioned softwares. I guess what softwares would you recommend? Maybe for a brand that's doing it on their own versus you guys. Do you have your own specific set of softwares, or are you doing all this advertising in platform?
We do a lot of bulk file uploads, and we use a lot of macros because, like, the software, they're all like, they do what macros do. So we do a lot
Mhm.
of that. We have a lot of custom macros that we use, and we do a lot of bulk file uploads, which
Mhm.
can be really challenging for a new to market brand or somebody who's not as familiar. I'm a big fan of Helium 10. I think Helium 10 is just a great research tool. And if you're looking for a software that can help you manage your advertising, um, an AI solution we like is Perpetua. We've actually recommended brands who, like, owner operator, where they're doing everything and they're like, I can't even wrap my head around it. They do a pretty good job generally. Like, as humans, like, we can outperform that, but for a straight AI solution, it's pretty good. And then we're big fans of either uh, Techometrics is a pretty good software. I'm trying to think of there's one more that's really good. I'm drawing a blank on it. Oh, Ad Badger. I love Michael Erickson's podcast on Amazon advertising. Sorry to cross promote another podcast, but he's got a lot of good information if you're looking to get started on specifically advertising on Amazon. That's all he talks about. And his software is pretty good too. So those would be the two softwares I would recommend. And if you're really good at it, I would use bulk files and save yourself the money and just create a couple macros.
Question a little bit
That's
off
awesome.
topic, maybe on stuff
Yeah.
is what's your thoughts on not necessarily product quality, I guess, on Amazon. A lot of like people I hear like on TikTok and stuff like that is like doing drop shipping is like a huge thing. Like, I'm making millions on Amazon from drop shipping this crappy product, pretty much. I've never met like a drop ship
Yeah.
millionaire personally or anything like that. But wondering like, how does that? I mean, obviously like reviews are a huge thing. But like this drop
Yeah.
shipping type of mentality of advertising on Amazon, is that like much of a, maybe I'm not understanding that wording right, but is that like much of a thing? Like, where that affects the advertising budget and stuff like
So
that?
totally illegal. Drop shipping isn't allowed on Amazon, and they
Hmm.
actually, it's a problem for sure. And recently, Amazon took some steps to mitigate how many drop shippers can be on the platform. I forgot
Hmm.
exactly what they put in, but there's now like a software. Oh, they put timelines into shipping, so if the product doesn't reach its destination within a certain time frame, it's flagging the accounts, and then they're
Hmm.
starting to weed out these drop shippers. And I'm unaware of any drop shippers that are killing it
Good.
like that. And in all
Yeah.
fairness, we work with brands, so it's hard to say. I'm not saying there is a model. I know, like, for example, in the automotive space, I have a friend that does reselling there, and they kill it. And I believe
Hmm.
it's drop shipping, but it's all US based. So it's honestly kind of confusing because we don't do anything in those categories. So I'm
Hmm.
not saying that you can't make a lot of money. I'm just saying I haven't personally seen it, and I don't know what that would look like.
Yeah. I mean, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen those ads too, and honestly, those guys are making more money off of their course than
Yeah,
off of their Amazon store. I'm sure.
positive.
It sounds cool, sounds sexy, like, hey, I can
Yeah.
work from home, I can quit my job, that kind of thing, and they pay $1,000 to this guy who's just
Yep.
hasn't done it himself.
And you guys run brands and stuff. Like, how easy is it just to do that? Like, you know, like
No,
what's the reality of it? Yeah,
no,
exactly.
it's not easy. I'm curious. We've kind of danced around this a little bit, but with advertising, well, I guess so. On Amazon, there are brands that have a brand, and then there are the no-name brands. And kind
Yeah.
of my personal perspective on Amazon is like, I don't really personally look for a specific brand when I'm shopping on Amazon. I'm going for reviews. I'm going for, the pictures look good, Prime. The brand name doesn't mean a lot unless like I'm very specifically looking off of Amazon and on Amazon for a specific brand. So I guess what importance does that play on Amazon, especially in tying it into advertising?
Yep.
Having a strong brand, is it important or not on Amazon?
I mean, it is and it isn't. So if you have a strong brand, your cost per acquisitions are going to be lower because you have brand awareness and you'll see a lot of branded search terms. So like it's more cost effective. We could be more efficient. We could choose whether or not we want to participate in advertising. When you're around the brand, I mean, so we always want to advertise like
Mhm.
new to brand customers, of course. But if you're a smaller, and this is what I love, like technically Amazon levels the playing field. And I'm a big fan of Shark Tank. You'll notice a lot of the startup brands, like where do you sell D2C and Amazon? Because the barrier to entries are so low and there's such a market there that the opportunities there. So
Mhm.
when it comes to like a brand that doesn't have, like if you're selling widgets, I always say widget, lemon squeezers, garlic presses, like all that stuff that they use in examples, the brand doesn't matter. So then now we're
Mhm.
competing on pricing, reviews, and the quality of the product, or some type of differentiator in the product usage that's going to separate it from the others. So that's the challenge, and generally, it's going to take a little more funding to get eyeballs on those page, to get the validation, and then eventually to turn those customers, shoppers, into customers. So it is a little different, but branding doesn't mean everything, and the smaller brands have the opportunity to really go strong in conquest, especially if they have something unique about their product. So,
Mhm.
it is, and it isn't important. Hopefully, I didn't just dodge that question on you guys.
No, no. I mean, I kind of expected something along those lines. The way I see it is that like a brand who starts D2C Shopify store, they grow to a few million in revenue, they've got some brand awareness, some followers on Instagram. It makes sense to really kind of lean into the brand on Amazon. Whereas like I've got a few buddies that do 100% Amazon, they're doing a few $1 million in revenue, and I mean that you've never heard of their brands, and they've got like a tire thumper over here, and then some uh, airsoft BBs over there, and so just like the most random assortment that really the brand doesn't matter. So it's
Yeah,
kind of like, what's your primary? I kind of feel like if your
yeah,
primary is Amazon, brand doesn't matter. If your primary is off Amazon, brand matters. That's
yeah,
my perspective.
yeah, yeah. To some degree, I agree with that too. And it sounds like this is a reseller, so it is a little different when you don't own the brand or
Mhm.
you're just rebuying, and also the price point. Like, how much does it cost to how much of an investment do I need, or how much of a risk am I taking? So, like, obviously, higher price point items, it takes a lot more to convince those shoppers to convert. Which is why if you're an Amazon only, or Amazon endemic, I think is the right term, brand, um, you'll you're gonna want to do full funnel advertising because you need to get to those customers when they're in the decision making
Mhm.
process. And DSP gives us the ability to drive traffic to specific landing pages. So we don't necessarily have to drive it
Mhm.
to Amazon. We can, like, we have a supplement company we work with who we like crush it with comparative marketing. So we drive
Hmm.
a lot of traffic to that to get them in the funnel because we know, like, generally it's 1 to 1 on the first purchase, but typically we get 5 to 6 purchases a year. So it's all about getting that first purchase, getting them in subscribe and save, and getting that recurring revenue.
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. Really quick, I guess my last question on Amazon is, and this is more kind of selfish. I have my own brand. I've been wanting to get on Amazon for a year and a half. I just haven't done it. Um, how much, I guess, what's the minimum spend I should be looking at? Let's say I'm just starting out, so I'm going PPC specifically. What like $5 a day is probably not going to do it, but like, what's the minimum spend I should be looking at to get started? And for how long should I be doing that before I can really, call it a success or a failure?
Yeah, I would say minimum spend. Generally, like when people ask me, I'm like, very minimum, like $1,000 to $1,500 per parent product is typical,
Mhm.
which should give us enough to do the bottom of the funnel and some experimentation like mid funnel. Because
Okay.
it does take, and obviously like some categories may have a lower cost per click, so it may not be much. But that's I would say. And then how long? It varies. So when we launch brands, and like especially a lot of brands might launch Amazon only and then expand to D2C. So typically what we say
Mhm.
is like you could expect in the first 6 months that 90 to 100% of your sales is going to be a result of advertising. So you're likely going to lose money. By 6 to 12 months, we should start seeing improvements, and we should be pushing more
Okay.
to like 50 to 80% of your sales are coming from advertising, and now we're starting to get some organic sales. And
Mhm.
then 12 to 18 months, we're going to be around hopefully 35 to 55% would be the ideal situation. And it always varies. Like I'm talking at hypotheticals, obviously, but that's kind of where we pull a mature brand on Amazon. Is, I mean, I hate to do the 80-20 again, but about 20% of their sales is going to come from advertising and the 80% is going to be organic. So, we're going to start
Mhm.
out 1-to-1, but like our goal is to get you in the next 18 to 24 months to be at that point where you're an 80-20 split, unless you're being aggressive and you're going after top line growth or something like that.
Got it. No, that's perfect. I mean, that's a detailed answer. That exactly what I was looking for. I appreciate that. Thank
I
you.
hope that helps.
Um, so as we wrap up, I've got one last question for you. I said last Amazon question, so this is now my potentially my last
Official
question.
last one.
If you were going to start, if you were going to start in e-commerce or physical product business today, what would it be and why?
I would choose jewelry as a category because the margins are really strong on jewelry. And I know that I could create enough audiences to build the full funnel experience that in a shorter period of time will be profitable than if I launched some other products in other categories. So personally, and I would probably have my wife come in as my co-founder for it, and it would be fun just to sell some jewelry and give her excuse to buy some jewelry and try it on and all that other fun stuff. Who says e-commerce can't be
What
fun?
kind of bling we talking about? Yeah, what kind of
I'm
bling we
thinking
talking about? We talking
grills,
about
like
big
gold,
brooches or
gold
what?
grills, gold grills, big chains. If I could get like the Flavor
uh,
Flav clock, I think that's. I think there's a market for that.
I'm
You're not
looking out for
wrong.
that one.
Yeah,
Yeah, Will's bling coming at you soon. I like it.
I am, man. I like the name
So
too. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, my answer to the question, which I was not planning on doing, but I've been looking at cold plunges lately, and I'm
Ooh,
getting ads. Like every other ad I get is a cold plunge that's, they got some cheap ones, they got some really expensive ones. The nicer ones are super expensive, crazy expensive. So I'm looking on Amazon, like, what can I cobble together? AliExpress, Amazon, like I'm just looking for whatever, Temu or whatever it's called. I'm looking at all these platforms trying to find the right one. There's not a good option on Amazon, I feel.
Those things
However,
are massive.
yeah, well, I mean, you can get some blow up, like some really nice inflatable ones. Like you can
oh,
get
there
some
you
good
go.
stuff, but you want to then you get a chiller, and that's the biggest part is the chiller. So that's kind of the more expensive, but it they also work for aquariums, and so all I find on Amazon are aquarium chillers, not cold plunge chillers. So I'm
Ooh,
like, okay, there might be a market there. However, with 35% Amazon taking a cut, and
mhm.
it's kind of an electronic, that kind of thing is like, would it even be economic to put it? And maybe that's why other people have not done it yet. So
They're big. I know
someday
that.
I'd love to.
I think it's a cool product and a cool niche. And my business coach told me this years ago, and I think it still reigns true today. The riches are in the niches. So that sounds like a pretty niche product. So
Mhm.
you never know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Will, thank you so much for jumping on with us today. Honestly, we could go for forever. I know, like we could dive so deep into these things. And so, where can our audience find you if they have more questions?
Yeah, definitely. So definitely check out our website. I'm pretty bellavix.com. And you could also find me on LinkedIn. I post something every day, and we have a uh, pretty impactful newsletter that we send out every other week on changes to the platform and how it affects sellers. So check out our website, Will Hair, like on your head with an E. And you can check me out on LinkedIn. I put stuff out all the time. And if you found this really valuable, I'd be really grateful if you subscribe to our newsletter. And thanks for having me, guys. This was fun. I got to talk about media planning, and I think we made some progress.
Thank you, Will. We appreciate it, man. And we'll be following up.